So today we are going to work on drawing a realistic nose, or at least according to me, okay? My ways of drawing are not the only way, so keep that in mind. If you have a better way, work with that. Maybe there's some things, some techniques or tips or tricks that you can use that I do that could be incorporated into your style as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with our tools. We've got our paper, our sketchbook, our tortillon or our blender. You could also use a Q-tip or a finger or whatever, okay? But definitely something to blend with. An eraser and pencils. And I would use a softer type pencil, probably an HB or a number 2, which is our basic pencils that we use in school or wherever. You can use a little bit softer. You can use charcoal, I guess. But for me, I'm using an HB. Okay. So that being said, let's go ahead and get started. And just like with everything else that I do with my other facial features, is that I start off with very simple shapes. And when we take those simple shapes and we bring them together, they make a bigger picture. And at first it seems very weird and looks very strange, but as we start building and we start shadowing and shading, it really starts to come together. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to start off with our paper. I'm going to go ahead and do my paper portrait style for this because the nose is a little longer. So I'm going to do the nose straight up and down on the paper. Another trick that I do, because I am a lefty, is that I like to put, because this would be how a normal spiral would be, but my hand is always on that spiral and I don't like that. It's not comfortable. So I just turn my paper around because the beauty of paper is it's portable. So what we're going to do is I'm going to turn this around because I'm a lefty. So then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to go about two-thirds of the way down the paper. And in the middle, I'm going to start drawing a circle. Now I'm going to do this a little darker because I want you to be able to see it good on the video. However, but don't do yours very dark because you're going to be doing some erasing and you don't want those erasing marks on your final product, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with my circle. Again, 2/3 down the paper and about right smack in the middle. And I'm going to start off with my circle there. The next thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to take and I'm going to do what I call a dejected Mickey Mouse. He looks sad. So his ears are going to be down a little bit on the side. So what I'm going to do is take and make a circle on the side of these, and then a little bit smaller of a circle than the center one, okay? And I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. Okay. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to connect from the bottom of this circle to the side of Mickey's ears. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to curve that line up just like that. I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. Curve my line up, connect my bottom part of my nose, of my circles, to my side circles. So it almost looks like some gears or like, say, bicycle wheels with a chain or something. So it just kind of gives you that thought. I like to connect things to different shapes and what I know because then it helps me to draw it a little better. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw two parallel lines, but I'm going to find the intersection of my big circle and my little circle and kind of skip a space. And then I'm going to go ahead and draw a straight line up and down, so vertical line. I'm going to do the next thing on the same thing on the other side. So find my intersection of my two circles, skip a space about the same distance away as the other line and go up and down. And again, they're parallel, so that means that if they were to continue on forever, they would never meet. So these are parallel lines, okay? The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take this from the end of this parallel line down to the edge of the circle, the top kind of left-hand side of this circle. So I'm going to just do an angle off onto that, okay? On the other side, I'm going to do the exact same thing, but to the right side. Okay. Almost looks like a little scientific flask there. All right. The next thing is that I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to erase all this stuff in the middle. I don't need those right now. I do need my, later on we'll kind of use where the circles were, but for right now we don't need them in there. Okay. The good thing is that some of this is going to be covered up with shadow and shading. Okay, so now I've got my basic shape of my nose here, all right? The next thing that I'm going to do is that I think this is a little too angled here, so I'm going to make it a little more organic, and I'm going to kind of curve this in. And then the same thing on the other side. I'm going to curve that line so it kind of curves up instead of angles up. I'm going to take, this eraser's a little better. There we go. Okay. And the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start, I'm going to do my nostril because we got to have a place to breathe, right? So in between where these two circles meet on each side, there is a little triangle of white. So what I'm going to do is on this circle, or on this triangle, I'm going to do a circle. And I'm going to make an apostrophe shape. So here's my apostrophe. I'm going to bring that up. So there's his little tail, and there's my apostrophe. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So here's my circle. I'm going to do his tail, and then bring that up, okay? So there's my nostrils. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start with some of my shadowing, okay? So I'm going to take, actually this is really basically it. This is, before I go on, this is your contour of your nose. So now we can just work with the shadow and shading and work with getting, creating that 3D effect and getting that depth and that look of realism, okay? So now we're going to take, and another trick that I use when I'm working with my tortillon is that sometimes I don't have enough graphite on the tip of my tortillon. So what I do is that I make what I call a pool of graphite on a scratch sheet of paper, and I just scribble. That way I have all sorts of graphite that I can kind of work with, and then I can pick up some of that graphite on my tortillon and I can get some shadows over here, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to load up my tortillon, and I'm going to go ahead and shadow the edge of my nose. Now, before, I should have said this before, but the way that we're going to look at the light, how the light's shining, always consider your light source. So what we're going to do is we're going to consider the light source coming from straight on. So it's coming straight down onto the nose. And so that being said, anytime light hits a surface, the opposite side is going to be darkest with the shadow. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shadow the edge here, because I think of the nostril, because I've already got the circles on there, I'm thinking of this side of the nose as a ball. And so that I'm going to have more shadow on the sides, because the light's going to be hitting pretty much the center or a little bit off center, maybe even with the nose, because the nose ridge is going to be about right here where the little nub of the nose is. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to curve, I'm going to follow the contour curve, and make sure you're following that curve, because that's what's going to give you that 3D effect. You want that curve going in, and keep going. Now I don't want to keep reloading my graphite on this, because I know that I want my shadow to get lighter as I get closer towards the center. Because again, as I get from the outside, you've got the dark, and then it's going to go like that little nub or tip of the nose. Okay? So now that's, we've got these sides shaded and we've got the middle shaded. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and soften the bridge of the nose. right on the edge and do the same thing on the other side. And I'm going to take and I'm going to start shadowing and kind of going from darker to lighter in the center, because the light's going to shine down from right here, just like it's shining here on the tip. So I'm going to take and I'm going to draw or drop some shadow here, darker shadow on the edge here, and it's going to get lighter and lighter as I get into the center. And I want to keep going again with my contour. So I'm going to follow that curve to give it that realism, okay? Same thing on the other side, all right? Go from the other side and work your way in. Follow that contour. Get lighter and lighter towards the center. There you go. And the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take and actually kind of color across the ridge of the nose here. With the ridge of the nose here, that's kind of where you got this little valley that just dips out just a little bit, because if you were to look at the nose from the side, you would see that this part sticks out a little bit. So that's why we're doing the shadow here on the little valley of this, okay? Now, if you find out that you are you've got too much graphite down, just use your eraser, pick up some of that graphite, and then go from there. All right, still looks kind of weird, but we're getting there, slow but sure. All right, so I'm going to take my pencil again, and now I'm going to go ahead and darken my nostril. So my nostril's going to go, excuse me, go ahead and, let's see, I got to shadow that real quick. There we go. I'm going to do my apostrophe shape, so I'm just going to color in that circle, bring the tail down of that apostrophe, and color that in also. Do the same thing on the other side. Draw a dark circle, color that in, and bring that down to the other side. Okay. That right there makes a huge difference in making it starting to look more realistic. I'm still going to go ahead and soften that just a tiny bit, cut across the nose on the bottom to give it a little more depth there. Okay, already looking better just by adding those darks, okay? The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take, again, my Tortillon, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go like make the edge of the nose look like it's sliding down or sloping down to the cheek. And so I'm going to take my Tortillon and I'm going to go ahead, since it's already got some graphite in there, I'm going to go ahead and angle down some of my lines and make it look like it's sloping down onto the cheek. And I'm going to soften those edges here. I don't want it to look harsh. I'm wanting the more realistic look, okay? So that's kind of what I'm going for. I'm attempting it at least, all right? The next side, we're going to go on the other side and do the exact same thing. And if it goes over on a little bit, that's okay, because you know what? That can be a good part of this. Sometimes our mistakes, or as I would say, sometimes our oops, ends up better than our original plan. So, there we go. Doing some shadowing here towards the cheek. Let's pick up some of that. I think that's a little bit too much graphite there. Okay. Soften this edge. Okay. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead, after you kind of get your basic sketch down and you get your basic contours down, don't be afraid to start putting your darks down and really use that pencil, because sometimes we get too scared to start darkening. Like, we might just stop here, and it would be okay if we did, but you'll see how much of a difference it makes when we start darkening those, like where the real darks are going to be, like the edges of the nose and underneath, and you'll see how much depth that adds. So I'm going to take my pencil and use the side of it. I'm not going to do this with it because I don't want the harsh lines. I want a softer line. So I'm going to take my pencil on the edge and I'm going to go ahead and slope this down a little and darken the edge of this part of the nose. Make it a little bit thicker of a line. And again, we're going to blend this dark into the lighter tones, the medium tones on the edge here. Same thing on this side. Kind of start right here where the nose curves. Bring this down towards the nostril. Again, we're going to darken it using the side of our pencil. Okay. There. All right. Now I'm also going to, because again we're thinking of the light coming from the front, I'm going to go ahead and darken underneath the nose a little bit more. And if you find out you don't like it with the dark like that, that's okay. Just erase. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and use my tortillon now, and I'm going to very gently, not quite as harshly as I did earlier, but very gently start softening those lines that I just made. And if it goes over the edge of that line, that's okay, because we do want some shadow on the sides. So that just takes care of that part of the work, okay? So if we can kill two birds with one stone, why not do it, right? All right, and then I'm going to bring this in, and then the same thing on the other side. Soften that line. Don't push too hard. Just kind of soften it. Just enough. All right, bring that down. And I'm going to fade this into the edge of my nose right here. And same thing on this side. Make sure that I've got those darks coming into the lights. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to soften just a touch the nostrils here. And then right here underneath the tip of the nose. Okay. Same thing here. If you go a little bit over, that's okay, because we do want that shadow under there a little bit. Okay. There we go. Now that's the basic idea of what we're doing with the realistic nose. You can keep working this and get it to where you're happy with it. The one thing that I love about art and the beauty of art is this is one of the few places that we are in total and full control over everything that's happening. It's kind of not like life, because sometimes things happen in life that we just can't control. And at least we on this paper can fix it, erase it, pick it up, go over it, change it. What we do here is total and full control over what we have. You are the one who knows what your best is. So keep working it till you're happy with it. Let me know if you are successful with this. I'd like to hear from you, and I will. And we're going to go ahead and soften this just a little bit more, and I'm going to stop there. And I will see you next time. Have a good one.